place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we when mad it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. Go tell a friend.
Sri Lanka have lost the keys to the bimmer. Sri Lanka have lost. This is the Murali End. My name is Mark Machado. I'm joined by Estelle Barsby-Devon, who joins us from the stadium in Colombo, and former Sri Lanka coach Anton Rue. Thank you for joining us. Hit that like, hit the subscribe button. I think Nick Brooks will be joining us in a few minutes. He's just finishing up the commentary for Guerrilla Cricket. There's an absolute load to discuss there. Estelle, we'll come to you first as you're at the ground. What's the feeling there at the ground right now, minutes after the defeat?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think I tweeted during the first game against Ireland how it wasn't like a house full crowd here at Premadasa. Not the case today. Like Sri Lanka's got 3 wins under their belt. Crowd was, anticipating 4 in a row. So there's a lot of disappointment. I think there were a few people walking out just as kind of things looked inevitable. So not the result that people are looking for. It's kind of been a bit of a dampener after 3 good games. But in terms of like the quality of cricket played today, I think, Sri Lanka just outplayed, right, by Zimbabwe.
Anton, it's a loss for Sri Lanka. Traditionally, we're known as dead rubber bullies. This was a dead rubber game. And we didn't bully today. In some ways, we got bullied, and we'll get into all of that. I think the big question for me, though, is momentum a thing? All the intensity we had against Australia seemed to have got sucked back. There was changes to the 11. 2 new players come in. Should as fans, what should we read into that performance? Should we be worried?
No, I don't think you should be worried at all, Mark. To be honest, I think what 3 wins in a row gives you the freedom and the right to experiment and to make a few changes and to rest a few players. Now, I'm not trying to shy away from responsibility, and that's the reason why we lost today. But you could clearly see some of the guys that came in were just short of a gallop in terms of where the intensity and where the execution is supposed to be in this World Cup. But credit to the coaches and selectors for actually going down that route of experimenting, because with the loss of Matisha Patarana now is a huge loss, not just because of his bowling, but I think again what impact that has in the setup of your bowling attack and who you're going to use in certain scenarios. It has a huge impact. So today was a great chance for the captain and the coach to try and experiment to see which guys are going to work in certain key areas. But again, I'm not using that as an excuse, but that's what 3 wins on the bounce gives you. Unfortunately, it didn't go Sri Lanka's way today, but we got treated to another great game of cricket. So in terms of that, it's another close encounter for the team. It's always nice to be in these pressurized situations because it's something that you can really look back on and discuss as a team. You'd much rather be discussing games like that than winning them hands down, especially when you're coming into the business end of the tournament.
Yeah, Estelle, in your preview yesterday, you talked about, or you told us that Murali Shankar was coming in. Were you expecting him to be straight into their 11? And, Anton there said kudos to the kind of selectors and management for, when I say selectors, I mean the people who've decided what 11 is going to play today, for kind of experimenting, because we were slightly worried that Shamira wouldn't be rested, and I think all of us, from Murali End's perspective, we kind of wanted to see him have a break because we were worried about his workload, right?
Yeah, and it was the perfect opportunity for Sri Lanka to test out those 2 fast bowlers, right? Because they haven't played in the tournament so far, and they have to decide who they want to play in the Super 8s. So it was a good opportunity. Again, like to mention, with the precedings, there's nothing riding on this game apart from like the confidence and the momentum factor that may or may not have an effect on the team, right? So the result in terms of the tournament doesn't really matter. So it was a good opportunity to test them out. I'd be very interested to see what happens and who they choose to go with, because I feel like Madhushanka, and I saw him in the warm-up games, and I saw him in the domestic competition before that as well. And he seems like he's bowling with a lot of pace, like he's got that pace back. But whether he's got the kind of movement that he was getting pre-injury, I'm not too sure. So that will be, I think that if he was getting that kind of movement, I think he would have been kind of a shoe-in. I don't think Pramod Madushan would have been picked ahead of him in the first place, like when Ishan Malinga was got injured. But now with that, I think they have to look at what kind of role they need either one of them to play, because they're replacing Matisha Pathirana, right? So you ideally want someone who's going to be good at the death. But yeah, today, as Anton said, the thinking, I feel like in this tournament has been good, right? The decision to go with the 6-5, the decision to persist with Dushan Hemanta after that one game. You feel like in terms of the selections and how they've planned things, they've got most of it right. So it'll be interesting to see who they pick for that next game, where, you know, it's going to be in Pallakale and they're going to play England, who very recently they had a very tough series against.
Just a quick reminder, if you're watching this and you don't have time to watch to the end, who knows, we'll open up the studio, who knows how long we'll be on today. If you want to, you can always listen back, you can always watch back on YouTube. We're on the Cricket Smash channel and we're on Combox as well, but you can also listen back to the show in your podcast app as well. Will be available on Spotify and Apple and all the other good podcast apps, and some of the bad ones a few hours after the game. I suspect there might be a few internet issues as well during this, so I can see it happening. So whatever happens with the podcast later, that will be a full clear version, all the delays and all that cut out, as well as we can possibly get it. Anton, I want to, we talked a bit about our bowling. I want to talk a little bit about the top of the order, because I think that's another area that there's a lot of debate around at the moment. Kusal Pereira stayed in the side today. I think I'm right in saying after the Australia game, you suggested that they've got to kind of stick with him. He got 22 or 14. I thought, though, early on in the innings, he looked like a bit of a walking wicket. But is it too late now that we've seen him play 2 games to change anything ahead of the match on Sunday and bring Kamil Mishra back in?
Yeah, look, I think that's definitely a talking point and a discussion point for the selectors and the decision makers moving forward. Yeah, I did mention in the previous episode that I think you can't just bring in a guy for one game and then make another change. So they've given him a run for a second game. I think the question is, what are they trying to get out of that position from that specific batter? And of course, we all know, and this is no disrespect to KJP. I mean, he wouldn't mind me saying this, but you've got to weigh up his contribution with the bat and the lack of contribution with him in the field. We saw him put down a catch today. It's not the first time that he's done that. He is a bit of a liability, although he does bring experience to the party, which I'm always in favor of. But you've got a young guy like Kamil sitting on the sidelines. I think he's done a tremendous job to get back into the team. He's shown progress. He's shown that he can do it. He brings a left-handed striking capability to the side, and of course, he's very good in the field. So, those are the discussions that the guys will have to have. But if you're gonna make a change, now's the time to make it, because that first game in the Super 8s, that's the most important one. So I think once this team gets selected for that game, I think that's the team that they're going to go with or should go with for the rest of the tournament.
Let's talk a little bit about the performance today, because we kind of I thought 178 should have been a defendable score on this pitch. There is now, obviously, on Murali End, we're a Sri Lankan cricket show, right? So we spend a lot of time talking about this pitch in Ketarama. Now that other teams are having to come here and try and win a World Cup on this pitch, there is a lot of other people talking about this pitch as well. I mean, I think it's easy to say that a few stray overs took this game away from Sri Lanka. But Estelle, I wonder if actually in hindsight, we left 20, 30 runs out there today.
It's an interesting one, because I feel like Sri Lanka throughout this tournament have had a problem in that consolidate period, as the ICC broadcasters have mentioned, right, the 7-14, I would actually say 7-15, Sri Lanka have had a bit of an issue with finding the boundary. I feel like that was the difference between the two sides in this game, in that Zimbabwe, they did not slow down in that period, right? They looked for boundaries and they were able to consistently get the boundaries during that period of time. And that is, I think, one of the big concerns for Sri Lanka going into the Super 8s as well. Because if you look at, I think we mentioned it after the first game also, like Sri Lanka's last boundary was at the end of the power play, and then the next one came in the 15th over, something like that, right? So that period is very, very important in how much you can go for at the end. But I will also say it felt like conditions changed a bit under lights. If you remember, like these games, 3 p.m. start means that like the first half is played in daylight and then you have the lights coming on for the second innings, right? So there is a bit of change. I don't know if Anton, like, you could see something different in the pitch, because obviously you've been with the team and dealt with these kind of conditions like on the pitch, right? But it felt from the press box, it felt like it got easier to bat on. I don't know whether that's to do with how Zimbabwe went about things, because obviously they I felt attacked a lot more. One example is like batting Ryan Burl at number 3, right? I know he's done that before, but that's a very like aggressive move to push him up the order and try to get as many runs early on as possible. So it felt like conditions changed, but as I mentioned, that 7-15 over period is something that Sri Lanka will want to look at their scoring rate in that period.
Yeah, Estelle, you're spot on there. My first reaction, having watched the game, was I thought it was definitely a better wicket that Ketarama has produced in the past. You could see that from the shots sort of making ability from both teams. But looking back on the game and checking the scoreboard and just taking in all the information, I kind of feel that we got undone by our own sort of conditions, because normally on a Ketarama wicket, that 170, 180 score is more than enough, right? So I think the way that the Sri Lankan team was aiming to get that score, I absolutely think that they fell a couple of runs short there. I think they thought, 180, the wicket should slow up, it should turn a lot more in the second innings, and therefore 180 is going to be enough. But dare I say it, I think Zimbabwe outspun us today, because if you look at their spinning, overs combined in terms of the run rate, not just that, but also the type of spin that they were putting in the ball. The ball was clearly spinning a lot more than what our spinners, Sri Lankan spinners, got out of the crease. And I think part of that's also due to the role that Mahesh plays. Now that Matisha is out, he's bowling way more overs in the front and then way more overs at the back. So you're seeing a lot more quicker, a lot more flatter deliveries. He's not really using the pitch. If I'm honest, he's trying to beat the guys underneath the bat if they're trying to reverse sweep or sweep. He's trying to beat them with pace. Whereas I think if you see Ryan Burl bowling and Creamer, I thought Creamer bowled beautifully. He slowed it up nicely. He got beautiful overspin on the ball. Whereas our Sri Lankan bowlers, we sort of put a lot of side spin on the ball. Dushi was sliding a few balls out of the front of his hand, and they bowled a lot off the line of the stumps. So I think that is, looking back from a bowling coach perspective, I think we can, the guys can discuss that a little bit and just be a little bit smarter around, okay, so when these conditions are slightly better, what do our options look like? Because, if that 180 was on a normal Premadasa wicket, it was more than enough. But clearly today, the wicket was slightly better. And we left a few runs out there, and I thought their spinners bowled way better than ours.
There's a comment coming about Teachner that I want to get to because the person I was watching the game with said exactly the same thing. Nick Brooks has joined us. Nick, thanks for coming along today. You've been watching the game for Guerrilla Cricket. Nick, we were just talking about, I don't know how much of it you caught, but we were talking about the pitch and how maybe Sri Lanka might have left runs there. Anton brought up that maybe he felt his weren't as effective as they could have been, and we kind of messed it up a little bit at the end. What was your kind of takeaway from the game today in terms of why Sri Lanka lost?
I think it was a worrying performance today. I think Sri Lanka looked like a team who were missing 4 frontline bowlers, and I thought the way that they negotiated that post power play period, kind of over 6 to 15. A little lacking in intent. Zimbabwe bowled well, but I think Sri Lanka needed a really good finish to get up to 180 in the end, which was well short of par. Perhaps did we see the kind of impact of playing on such Premadasa paddy fields for a long period of time tonight, where when they get a slightly better pitch, there wasn't the ability to adjust fast enough. Also a really uncharacteristic knock from Kusal, right? Usually such a strong player of spin. Today really struggled to get going. And I think that hurt Sri Lanka in the end.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the batting, because I think lost in it is that lost in the loss would be that actually, yet again, you know, and we'll get to Kusal, but Patton was superb again today, wasn't he, Esty?
Yeah, he looked like he was just picking up from where he left off against Australia. The only thing, I mean, I don't want to worry you too much, Mark, but he didn't field. And he looked a bit uncomfortable running between the wickets in the latter part of his innings as well.
No.
So, I mean, I just hope it's like a cautionary thing. I'm sure he will play on Sunday, but I hope it doesn't really affect his performance come Sunday, because Sri Lanka are, I think, we've spoken about this before, so dependent on that pair, right? Kusal Mendis and Pathum Nissanka. We need them to score runs if we want to put a big total on the board. So hopefully nothing serious.
Anton, I'm going to have to ask you about Pathum's back injury, right? Because we know that he's kind of got a long-term back issue. Yeah. Estelle's brought up that he didn't field. I didn't realise that he didn't field. You know, as somebody who's coached him and worked with him, do you have any insight into how he manages that injury and if it's something us as fans should be worried about?
He's definitely got a chronic back issue. It's like most back pain stuff. It's there for a long period of time. It's just what you can deal with as a player. I know that the management, the sports science management, are looking after and caring for him daily. He's good in doing his prehab work. It's just something that you've got to manage as a player. I know that they've taken him out of the short leg positions, for example, in the test matches, and they've moved him into places where he can just stand and field normally. So, you know, they are being proactive when it comes to that sort of thing. I never felt when I was part of the side that was a massive issue. It was just one of those things where, you know, a player has got a bit of a back issue, and it's how you manage that as a professional throughout your career so that you can prolong your playing days. So if he felt a bit of back stiffness today, I agree with Estelle. It would have just been out of precautionary. That, you know, it might have been. I heard the commentator say at one stage that it was a lot hotter and more humid today in Colombo. So if that's the case, I think they're just trying to, you know, put him on ice, wrap him up in cotton wool, and get him ready for the Super 8s.
Nick, one of the key players today for Sri Lanka was Pavan Ratnayake. What did you make of his performance?
Just generally, since he's come into the side, I've been so impressed with the intent that he's shown. The really pronounced foot movement, not just against the spinners, where it can sometimes look a little bit bull in the china shop, but also against the seamers, where he's willing to get really deep in the crease to try and get under the ball. I just feel that he's actually kind of been something of a revolutionary presence for Sri Lanka in the middle order. It's been one of the real positives from the tournament so far, getting those contributions from him, Kamindu, Dusson, and Weller today. I thought, you know, a really important little cameo at the back end from Wellalagate again. Without those runs, Sri Lanka would have been well short of par.
Yeah, absolutely. We just need to figure, like, coming into the tournament, the question marks were over our kind of middle order. I think in a way, and if we could finish an innings, I think in a way we've kind of learnt to finish an innings. Or we've figured out how to do it. We're getting through it. It's the drop off of intent after over 6, and then kind of between, you know, as Estelle said earlier, between 7 and 15. But I also look back at that innings and think, actually, you look at the way like Dustin gets out, he shows intent. So there's a balance to be made, to be struck somewhere. I also wonder if it's just the nature of T20 cricket is that it's really difficult to consistently do it. We've kind of done it for 3 games today. the option is you do it today or you do it on Sunday, then obviously we're all going to pick Sunday, right? But I kind of, yeah, I like. We're not going to be able to really fully analyze what this result means till a week's time, right? Till we end up figuring out where we end up in the Super 8. There's a comment that's come in. I was watching the game with a good friend of mine called DJ Nero, who I know Nick knows as well. And he made the exact same comment that Niswada's made. I think Shada's not a spinner. He's a medium pacer with off-cutters, which I think is a kind of reference to how batters ended up playing a Jonathan Mendes all those years ago. Anton, as someone who's coached Deeks, what's your take on that comment? Because I think looking at the other comments, Deeks is coming in for a lot of criticism today.
Look, I had the privilege of being his bowling coach actually for the Goal Marvels, and I can't tell you how many times I've told that guy that when he bowls his proper stock ball off spinner, he's got one of the most beautiful off spinning balls in world cricket. He bowls it at high pace, he gets good shape, good energy on the ball, it dips nicely and it turns. And you even heard Aaron Finch speak about it tonight, because he was privy to that when the Australians toured Sri Lanka in 2022, just after COVID. So I think in and amongst Theaks's rise to fame and becoming one of the world's top spin bowlers, to be honest, and again, this is nothing new that he hasn't heard before, I think he's lost the art, or he's become a little bit less favorable to go to his stock ball. He's trying too much of bowling a flicker or a swinger or a quicker ball. I think he's way better than that. And how he sets up his 6 balls of his over, I think needs relooking. And I think he needs to trust his ability to bowl a proper off spinner, which I then think is going to make his doosra and his flicker and his swinger a lot more effective, whereas it's the other way around now. So, and then when he tries to bowl his off spinner, sometimes he doesn't have as nice control. It ends up becoming a step hit and he gets hit out of the park. But that's not his role, though, is it? So that's where I think there's a bit of uncertainty for me in terms of what his role is, because he's clearly being used as a first 6 bowler, which he always has been, which is perfect. But then if you use him at the back end, you sort of miss that real quality spin in the middle, and that's where we had Wani to take control over there. So again, like I said to you, with the injury to Matisha, it's sort of, I think this is the biggest question mark I have with the team in the Super 8s is what's their bowling attack going to be? And then my next question would be is what are their roles going to be in the 20 overs? Because at the moment today, if anything, it just showed you that we are lacking a bit of, how can I put it? If we only play 2 seamers and the rest are all spinners, I think we become very, opposition are going to know what we're going to try and do. So we become very, I think it's too one-dimensional. So I'm not saying we should pick more bowlers to give us more options. I think the type of bowler that you use in certain scenarios and certain phases of the game, that's going to give Dasun the better option to control, the way the innings goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this
and just to touch on.
Oh, go on, Nestle.
Sorry, I was going to say, just to touch on something that Anton mentioned, right? With Matisha gone and Vanindu gone, then it's almost like Mahesh is kind of the guy who has to balance both of those roles, right? Like he does have a role to play in the death overs, but you'd also like him to be the one who comes in and picks up a couple of wickets in the middle overs. So they have to kind of decide what they want from him. Because between the power play, the middle overs and the death, he's not going to be able to bowl or get a proper run in all 3 phases, right? So I think that adds a lot of pressure onto him as well, because those 2 bowlers are played very distinct roles for Sri Lanka. So without them, then the responsibility falls on Mahesh.
Yeah. Do you guys not think Sorry, Anton. I was going to say, do you guys not think we got like a bit of a backovers crisis today? I know it'll be slightly alleviated when Dushi comes back into the side, but like Patirana Hasaranga, the 2 bowlers who you'd normally go to for wickets in the middle overs, and then I think today we saw both Dilshan and Pramod much more comfortable operating in the power play than at the death, and it feels to me a bit like we're trying to shoehorn anyone in to bowl those kind of last overs. And it just seems that's a really big loss.
Yeah, Nick, I think you make a good point there. I think of it slightly differently as well. I think if you don't control those first 6 overs in terms of run rate or wicket taking ability, then who's then going to take wickets for you in the middle phase? I don't think opposition have to fear anyone taking wickets against them with the Sri Lankan bowlers. So for me, it's about who's going to control this first 6 overs, because then if they then have to choose to come after our bowlers in the middle phase, I think that gives our bowlers a little bit better opportunity to take wickets, which then will stifle them moving forward. But if they get off to a fly off the first 6, I think it's just in my mind, I'm struggling to think how we become too predictable. There's nothing new that Dustin can try to bring in a guy and go, oh, this is different, So I think the first 6 is massive. I know I've been on about this for a long period of time now, but I think from a bowling perspective moving forward, how we control those first 6 is going to set up how our bowlers go about their business after the rest of the game.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. We're going to open up the studio. I'll put the link in. If you guys want to come in and join us, please do. I think it's...
Sparky gone down briefly. We've lost. There he is.
I'm back. Shaquem,
Uncle Mark risen from the dead.
Got timed out. I guess I'm going to head off soon to go to a press conference or something. Manura is joining us from Canada. If you want to join us, I'll put the link in the system. Manura, how's it going, bro? How are you feeling after today's performance?
I think it's good. It's a good match to lose, I guess. I believe I'm in the positive side. So it's basically we are not the Indian team, anyways. Like we don't have that kind of bench strength. We don't have our star bowlers. They are injured, and also one of them is being rested out. So it's a good learning curve. You don't need to win every game in this World Cup. You just have to win the crucial matches out there. Yeah, we have to look for the positive side where Dilshan Marshall, that is fabulous. That comeback is really good. So with Chamira alongside Chamira, this is a good bunch to go ahead in this World Cup. And then I believe like we are the only team in this World Cup. Like not actually the only team, one of the best teams here in the World Cup to beat India in our day. So I guess we have to be in that kind of a positive tone, and also in a way it's a good match to that's why I said a good match to lose, where so-called overhyped Sri Lankan fan base we can bring in sort of like we can bring down a little bit, because otherwise it's I believe it might go in disadvantage for our boys going ahead. Yeah.
Look, Manura, after the game on Wednesday, was it Wednesday or Tuesday? I didn't get to sleep, or Tuesday. I didn't get to sleep till like 2 a.m. I was just lying there thinking about it, watching and listening to anything, little bit of content I could find of anyone talking about it. So yeah, maybe calming it all down, like pretty good. For
that's
me
good. That's good.
What I do wonder about is it feels to me, and we touched this right at the top as well, Anton, like about that intensity, right? Because and then like I look back at that game when we beat Australia, that first 6-7 overs went so badly for us, and then the intensity kind of I felt comes in with a bit of good fielding just to stop the ball getting to the boundary, and then that leads directly to a wicket, and that's what I kind of didn't see today. And I know obviously the pitch is much larger in Colombo, but I kind of I just wonder how easy is it for these intensity.
Has Uncle Mark gone under again?
Looks like it,
yeah. He was saying how easy it was to. Sorry, go on, Anton.
Yeah, no, I think I know where he was trying to go. Like today, I think we were also quite sloppy in the field. We didn't have that that intensity that we had against Australia. In saying that, we took a couple of nice catches. Look, I don't know how we didn't get off the field with another 2 injuries with a potential clash there with Dasun and who did he nearly clash into there? Was it
I think Vella. It was Vella.
Kamil.
Yeah.
Kamil? Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I think it was Camille. Yeah, and that just shows you again there was no communication. It was just a little bit sloppy, and so I think there's a lot of areas today, and I agree with Manura here. It's like if today is the day that you put in a sloppy performance, it's today. Then I'm happy with that. As a coach, you've got all
Not
right
anymore.
to then you've got all right to step onto the players and say, hey, we need to step up the intensity. We need to be a little bit better coming into the Super 8s, because the teams that we're going to play in, they will be brilliant in the field regardless. You know that. It's part of their DNA. It's part of their culture. So for us to be competitive in the next 3 games in the Super 8s, we're going to have to come to the party in all three disciplines: bowling, batting, and fielding. And all of those 3 disciplines are going to be put under pressure. So I agree fully with Manura. I think if ever you're going to put in a bit of a sloppy or performance where you want to try new few things, new combinations, it's probably today. But in saying that, again, it was a close game, and I'd much rather play those games than get beaten badly or win very, very well. So I'm not pressing the panic button at all. I'm just worried about what the makeup is going to be of the bowling lineup come the next few games.
Yeah, I think potentially quite a nicely timed wake-up call, right? And I think these guys have probably gotten used to thinking that at the Premadasa 180 is well above par, and thinking that at the halfway stage they were very confident tonight. So maybe just a little reminder that when the pitch is there to hit the ball, you've got to go a bit harder. I had another point that I was going to make. Oh, yeah, we've been dead rubber kings over the past sort of 18 months, right? Often losing games when nothing's on it. So maybe it's a nice time to sense that trend's starting to reverse. Won an important game against Australia on Monday, missed out today. But yeah, England clash on Sunday is going to be absolutely huge, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're spot on there. I think if you look back to our preparation of the World Cup, having played a couple of games against England, and a few of them at Palakele. So it's not like we're coming into this game underprepared, right? So we've had those games against England. We know the opposition. We know what they're going to try and do in those conditions. We've now played 4 games in our own conditions in a World Cup. We've done well. We've progressed to the next round. I mean, you can't go into this next game against England better prepared. You can't, apart from the fact that we've lost a couple of players to injury. But I think every single box has been ticked. It's now the opportunity for the think tank to sit together and go, right, this is what we've learned in the last couple of games. This is what we know what England are going to be doing. What is the lineup that we're going to put together? And I think Dustin's going to have a great game as captain. And of course, Pathum, long may his run of form continue, because I think our whole batting lineup is built around him at the moment. And then it's going to come down to a special innings or a special bowling performance from someone. You know, most of these games are going to come down to the last 2 or 3 overs, where someone's going to be either a hero or zero. So I can't wait for these next few games. I think both teams, us and Sri Lanka and the opposition, are going to be under pressure, and this is what World Cup cricket is all about. You know, and I can't wait for it.
I've switched to a different part of the house, but hopefully the internet's better. Manura, just before we let you go, I just want to ask you one question. Is if you were the coach of the Sri Lanka team and you were back in the changing room with them right now, what would you be telling the boys after that performance? And what would your thoughts be for them?
Exactly the same thing I was telling earlier. Like, don't panic now. Now it's a good learning curve. It's always been our strength, like from the beginning, like early days when Sangha Mahela was playing as well, to lose 1 match in the group stage. We have not gone there like with all the matches winning. It's sort of a pressure if you win all the matches in the group stages and also going into the like, let's say you're going to the semis, and it's gonna be so much of pressure with the fan base and everything in a country. You are living in a country where like fans are getting overhyped when you are winning, even if it's Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh. So that's happened in a in a culture. Its cultural perspective is the most impactful in that aspect. So I believe I'm telling the boys to calm down and let's go with the win. We have Shamira in our back, so don't worry. We have a star bowler, a magician. So go ahead and we are going to win the next match. Don't think about the semi-finals or the finals. Just leave it later. We'll go for the England match. We have almost won like 2 games out there with England in that series. So it just because of the pitch conditions and also poor batting performance, which we are doing really well now. So this batting unit is really good. Even the intent this Dasham Shanak is showing, it's really good. I believe it's sort of good. And also KJP, he was playing a good knockout there. So it's nice. It's nice to see this. All the batters are getting runs, and yeah, nothing to worry about. Going ahead in a happy mood.
Nick, are you getting the hairdryer out tonight?
I won't, but I reckon Sanath probably will. I think there's stern words probably coming from coach about the performance tonight. As Anton said, there was a little bit of sloppiness in the field. I've got to say, I still thought Sri Lanka were in control of the game right until that over where Dushan Hemantha got taken down by Sikandar Raza. I think that was the real turning point. But yeah, it means nothing, right? Thank goodness the Super 8s were preceded and we didn't end up in that other group, which I would say looks slightly more challenging. I think you've got to look at England, Pakistan, New Zealand, and think that's 3 really winnable games. We've got a bad one out of our system tonight. We go again over the weekend.
Yeah, Manura, I'll let you go. Thanks for joining the show, bro.
Yep, nice to have you guys.
And hopefully see you over the weekend as well.
Yep.
And I'll put Kai on the stage. Kai, thanks for joining us today. And lovely Sri Lanka shirt, by the way. Very old. Is that 92 one, is it?
I don't know. I don't know if it's actually like it might be a 92 one, but I don't know if it's like an actual shirt or if it's like a replica, which is kind of looks like an old shirt. But that's a good point, actually. I didn't think it might be a 92 one because it does look quite similar.
Yeah. What was your thoughts of the performance today? What would you like to tell us?
It's a bit sloppy, and I think also showed us that we aren't like the teams we beat weren't brilliant, and Zimbabwe are actually a really good T20 team, and we've not played enough T20s really, have we? Like compared to Zimbabwe, who like if you look at their kind of players, Sikandar Raza scored more T20 runs than any Sri Lankan batter, just full stop. Byron Bennett scored the most T20 runs over the last 2 years, I think. And like they played a lot of T20 cricket and they're getting quite good at it. And we've not, and so we've regressed. Like when we first stepped into T20 cricket, like it was at an era which was really strong for Sri Lanka and we were one of the best sides. We haven't innovated enough, we haven't played enough. And so, we've struggled, and like Zimbabwe, a really good T20 team. Australia, not so much. I thought this was the real test in the group, not necessarily Australia, considering they're down their 2 main fast bowlers and Mitchell Starker's just retired. Like, this was the test, and it wasn't a great outing. It wasn't a great showing of kind of what this side should be able to do.
Kai, there is regular listeners and viewers of this show will be desperate to know what you think about the biomechanics of the Zimbabwe side.
Particularly
Sikandar Raza.
Sikandar Raza is really interesting, and like I think both batting and bowling, right? He's got a really strong base when he's hitting. Like he hit some big sixes earlier, right? Especially straight, and so he's got a very strong base. He's experienced, and like you can see like he knows what he's doing. And then from the bowling perspective, like the change in angle of his arm, right? Sometimes he really slings it down. It's similar to I've forgotten the Usman Tariq, in that he can change of pace and also change of angle of arm when he's bowling, right? When he's like changes his arm angle, that increases speed because he's got like he's able to create greater force for his shoulder, right? And I thought that like that when you're looking at bowling performance, but also I think Musrabani's a really interesting one, right? Because look at Musrabani's action. It's not like a very perfect action, but you see the difference between him and the Sri Lankan bowlers is that he extracts that extra bounce. He's a lot taller. And someone I wanted to talk about was Pramod Madushan. I don't know what he brings to this side, right? I think when you look at any bowler, especially T20 bowler, you need to be an X-factor player. I don't know if Pramod Madushan is that. You either need to be quick, especially when you're replacing Patharan, who Patharan's slower ball is quicker than some of the stuff that Pramod and Dilshan were putting down today. And he's not fast. He didn't look accurate. He bowled quite a few wides, and his short balls were non-threatening because he's a short guy and doesn't get that extra bounce. Whereas Muzrabani, he's not like biomechanically perfect, but he's got the big advantage in the height, right? Because he's a lot taller, he doesn't have a brace front knee when he comes through the crease, which is a disadvantage, but he's very tall. He gets that extra bounce, putting a lot of energy into the surface, and so those back of a length deliveries really work for him.
Yeah, Anton, we'll talk about Pramod in a bit, but I'm coming to you on this, Anton, because I don't know how closely you've watched Zimbabwe, but you do live on the same continent as them and not too far away from where Zimbabwe is. So I just wanted to get what your thoughts were on this Zimbabwe side, because I think they're absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, if you look at, I'll first start with their build up to this World Cup. I think, like, if you look at their calendar and their fixtures that they had going back now about 6 months or so, maybe even longer, they've had a horrible run in terms of results, right? But you can't argue the fact that they've been battle tested. It's not easy playing games and losing every single game, but I think a huge credit has to go to their coaching staff, headed up by Justin Salmons, in terms of how they kept the fight, kept the belief going in the changing room, painting the bigger picture. I know that they are super proud to represent Zimbabwe, and all that hard work and all that graft and all that fight is now coming to the fore. You know, these guys have come into this tournament battle hardened. You can see that their role clarity is very clear for the players and for everyone else to see. And I absolutely agree with Kai in terms of they've got a few. I think their matchup against Sri Lanka is just a very good matchup. They've got few bowlers that do something different. They've got the ability to slow the ball up when they really can, and then of course they've got the firepower at the end in Raza, who's the guy's played T20 cricket all around the world. So not only does he bring his skill and his execution, but he brings through a lot of experience. You can see him. He's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve in the field. He wants the best out of everyone, but he's also very calm and stuff in the dugout when they're doing run chases and that sort of stuff. And I think that purely comes down to performance. So just to wrap up my thing, I think they've come into this tournament very well battle hardened and very well coached, and credit has to go to their coaching team.
Yeah, it's they've done quite a good job making them quite a decent, difficult team to beat. Nick, I wonder if we've seen Australia head home, and there's a few other of the bigger teams, including England, who've kind of not set the world alight, but maybe they should be looking at the kind of Zimbabwe model in terms of getting a kind of squad together and kind of batting through it, literally and figuratively in this case, in terms of trying to build a T20 side, right?
Yeah, I think it's been lovely to see the kind of resurgence of Zimbabwe cricket over the past couple of years. They're a really likeable team. Brian Bennett, I think, is still yet to be dismissed in the tournament, which is kind of wild heading into the Super 8s. And Sikandar Raza, as Anton said, showed all his experience today. I think he was 7 off 10 and then took 30 off his next 9, completely transformed the innings. The spinners bowled cannily, Creamer and Bow, both prepared to give the ball lots of flight, something that we might have seen maybe a little bit more from Dushan. Yeah, really impressive performance. On the Pramod point from Kai, I feel a little bit bad for Pramod because I think he's being asked to do a job which is tricky for him. He looks to me much more comfortable with the new ball than he does with the old ball. I kind of have to ask a question again about SLCs like depth chart, how the decisions are being made, how Nuwan Tashara has gone from being in the first 11 to seemingly well outside of the 18. I know I'm a broken record on this, but I thought Lahiru Kumara 18 months ago was developing into a really handy kind of middle overs enforcer. He seems to be completely discarded as a white ball bowler. Binura doesn't seem to be on the selector's radar any longer. Asitha Fernando, I know we've long said that he is possibly over bowled, but he's Sri Lanka's best red ball bowler, and he's looked to me in white ball cricket like a guy who can at least bowl in all phases. So yeah, I do like slightly wonder how decisions are getting made, what's happened to some of those names.
I want to hammer on that Lahiri Kumara drum quickly, because it's kind of where's he gone? But I know that a lot of people talk about kind of facing different bowlers, and we always see the bowling speed, but I don't know if any of you follow Matt O'Dowd on Instagram or TikTok, but he does like kind of commentaries over bowling his face, and he and a lot of other batters always talks about like Lahiri Kumar. You don't feel like you've got the time against. He's very quick, like both like fast, like on the spin gun, but also off the pitch, right? And especially when you're replacing Patarana, who's like a 150 k's bowler, why wouldn't you bring in a Lahiri Kumar? Because you're replacing pace with pace. Like, I know obviously you want to talk about T20 skills and lots of other things, but there is a stage where you want like the pace to bounce, the kind of challenging batters and like getting it up at the grill, making them feel uncomfortable at the crease, and then like they feel like they need to relieve the pressure against the spinners, and then that's when Mahesh can like slow it up and bowl those slow off breaks and try and actually and Dushman Hemanta can toss it up and they can look to take wickets. But when they're able to kind of almost milk the seamers for ones and twos, and then the occasional boundary when they bowl a loose ball because they feel like they've got time to get on and cut the short and wide one or whatever, like that, like the extra pressure from the extra pace, I feel like is a big advantage. So I have questions over why Lahiri Kumar was almost completely removed out of this white ball setup when he is like, obviously there's injury concerns, but like he's a quality fast bowler.
So sometimes, Kai, when you support the Sri Lanka cricket team, you just have to understand that it's some things that we will never quite understand, and because we're just mere muggles, our heads wouldn't really fully understand the mechanics of the selection committee. So we just got to accept that Lahiri Kumar is in the wilderness at the moment, and we may see him in the future, we may not. Who knows? Kai, I'm gonna let you go for the moment, and I'll bring George on. George, thanks for joining us today. Whereabouts are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Bangalore in India, and
lovely.
Ardent follower of Sri Lankan cricket since my childhood. So yeah, I mean, though I support India because I'm from India, but Sri Lanka is always very close to my heart. And I was in Colombo a couple of weeks ago as well, enjoying and holidaying. So yeah, I mean, talking about today's loss, it is slightly disappointing, and I've been hearing opinions of Nick and Anton and you, Mark, about how this could have been a testing ground of sorts. But maybe I'd like to add a point which Kai was actually referring to. He was talking about Lahiri Kumara. For me, one of the biggest, I thought one of the left field choices for this World Cup could have been Jeffrey van der Sey especially when Hasaranga got ruled out. Why? I know he's on the wrong side of the age. He's 36, I believe, right now. But I remember even the last month, he had a great performance for the one of the domestic games where he got the opposition out for 121 odd. I remember that. And he's in good form, right? And he has troubled some of the top class batters. Takes me back to that series where India toured Sri Lanka a couple of years back, where he had Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, everybody in trouble, right? Now, that's where I felt Jeffrey van der Sey could have been that bowler with a lot of experience. He carries that, and he's been playing a lot of domestic cricket. I know his stats in T20 don't speak a lot, but in World Cups like this, he's got that dog in him to really go, put that foot on the right side of the pedal and maybe pick up some big wickets through the middle overs, which Sri Lanka is lacking at this point, I believe.
Look, when Hasaranga got injured, I was a big advocate of bringing Van der Sey into the side. Nick, I know you're a big fan of him, mainly because me and Nick had some great interactions with him when Sri Lanka were over for their test series with England about 18 months ago. So, Anton, we'll get your takes on him. How do you feel about Jeffrey van der Sey?
Yeah, I think if you look back at some of the previous podcasts I did on your show, I was also a big advocate for Jeffrey purely because I think he's the best wrist spinner next to Wani. But in saying that, I can completely understand why they've gone for Dushman Hemanta, because he's good in the field, and he gives you a little bit of extra stuff that Jeffrey doesn't give you with the bat. And look, you can argue that Dushan won us the game against Australia. So I can see why they've gone down that route. Now you've got to back him. He's in the squad. There's no point in really thinking back who we could have got in or who should have played, because the decision has been made. Wrist spinners do have the ability to for one game to slip down. It's a very tough art to perform consistently, and I think Dushan is also a very confidence type player. So I think today would have done him a lot of good in terms of, okay, I've got to learn how to bowl better on good surfaces, and I think he can just rewind a few days ago, put up his highlights against Australia, and just copy paste that against England, and we're off to the races again. Just on Lahiru Kumara, I think we've touched on his name a few times now. I think, to be honest, I can't talk for anyone else in the squad, but I think one of the main reasons why we don't see Lahiru is because there's huge injury concerns around whether he can make it through a game, and that's no discredit to him. I just think if you look at the makeup of the man, he's my nickname that I gave him the nickname the Rhino, because he's a big man. He's a big man. Like, he runs in hard, like the force that gets exerted to bowl at that sort of pace. There's a lot of force that goes through the body in doing that. It's just unfortunate that he's been plagued with injury, because at one stage I thought Lahiru, and he's got a nice little in shape. He moves the ball laterally in the air as well and off the wicket. But I'm a big NFL supporter, and one of the Tom Brady's favorite quotes is, what's the best ability a player can have? It's availability. It's not your execution. It's not your skill. It's if you're not on the park, you're no use to anyone, right? So your availability, that's where the question mark, I think, is around Lahiru, and I think around a lot of the fast bowlers, if I'm honest, of Sri Lanka. So we need to focus on that and get that ready, so that we don't get this type of injury cloud, biting us in the arse again in the next few tournaments.
George, as a non-Sri Lanka fan, but somebody who follows our team closely, which players for you get you interested in the side at the moment, and how far do you think the Sri Lanka team can go?
Well, in my earlier predictions, I'll answer your last bit first and then come to the favorite players. But in my earlier predictions, I was having a chat with a few of my colleagues, and I was also part of the cricket analyst community for a long time. So I was having a chat with them. I had predicted India-Sri Lanka final in Ahmedabad. No biases. I'm just saying that because Sri Lanka has got the best road to play majority of the tournament in Sri Lanka. If Pakistan doesn't qualify, they can play their semi-final in Sri Lanka as well, and then make a move to playing only game, which could be the World Cup final in Ahmedabad. But having said that, I think a couple of roadblocks for them in this tournament is certainly going to be that Pakistan game, because I am slightly concerned. I know Ratnayake, now talking about the favorite player bit, right now in this World Cup, Ratnayake has really captured my imagination. I would say I never expected him to come this good. He seems to have a great bat swing. He seems to be very steady on the crease, especially what I really notice is his ability to pick up length. And that's a very, very important trait for a batter out there. And I see that as an issue with a lot of Indian batters going into this World Cup, struggling to pick up length versus spinners. Hence, you're seeing that Indian team has been slightly patchy, right, throughout this tournament, the last 3 games. So Ratnayake's ability to pick up, especially spinners' length, has been fantastic. So hence, if he can hold one end up in that Pakistan game, I think that's going to be massive. But other than that, I've always loved Kushal Mendes. I mean, I've been a big advocate of him. I still believe the ceiling limit of that lad is somewhere. He should have been in the top 5 batters of this generation. I'm really hoping, though, this World Cup he lights it up, win Super 8s, and obviously Pathum Nissanka. I mean, I don't have words for him. I think he's a generational star for Sri Lanka, and I believe that he'll go on to captain the side in the coming years, and he'll be a successful one as well. But yeah, I hope Sri Lanka makes it to the semi-finals. That's the first step. Then it's on the given day. But having said that, Pakistan game and the England game, I still build back Sri Lanka versus England, though the last series was a little bit challenging for them. In Kandy, it's going to be an even contest. I think it's going to be 60-40 still to Sri Lanka. But if Sri Lanka can chase in that game, I think England will be under pressure.
So such an exciting time for us Sri Lanka fans. I next time you come on, Georgia, you got to come on after the England game. I'm going to ask you about Abhishek Sharma, and when do you think if he's not scoring runs, when does he get dropped? Because he's a batter I do normally enjoy watching, but he's not having a lot of success at the moment. Thank you for coming on today. I'm going to let you go. If you just hang about at the back so we can get your local upload, and I'll bring Dilani onto the show. Dilani, thank you for joining us today. How are you feeling after today's game?
Hi, guys. So first of all, I just have to say, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. First of all, I really enjoy the show. It's my go-to after every cricket match. So thank you so much for doing this, because I've learned a lot from you guys by just watching the show. Also, it's a good stress reliever, right? So,
it's great therapy for
but yeah,
us, right?
I didn't get to watch the whole match today because I was in a study session. So, but I think, and I'm not like very good at understanding all of this as some people on the show are. So, but I am a passionate fan. But I will say, like, I think coming into this World Cup tournament, we had a lot of issues, right? Like, we know 3 players who were sent home, said, don't come, we don't need you. That's just one of the issues. But there were so many issues coming in. So coming in itself, we were not confident at all. We didn't look like we were going anywhere. We had the question of, do we actually go into the Super 8 or not, right? That first game with Ireland, it looked like we had a lot of issues. And then Oman was slightly better, but then the fans were like, okay, yeah, that's Oman. And I think the test somewhat became Australia. So, I mean, considering all the issues we've come in with and the issues we're still trying to sort out with the IS bowlers gone, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I feel like, it's a big thing that they're still in the Super 8, knocking out Australia from this. And for me, I feel like it's more about the fight they give at this point rather than necessarily results, because there's something that MST always says. He says if something doesn't go your way, it's the process you have to work on, right? It's the process you have to get back to. It's not the result you should be worrying about in the middle. It's like what you are doing at the back that gets you to win games on the field. So then to me, it's a question of what's actually happening in the background, what is going on more than the actual results. So I'm not too worried about, today. It's a bit disappointing, no lie, but it wasn't unexpected. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked about a lot on this show over the last 18 months or so is in Sri Lanka cricket, there is an emphasis on win today and don't worry about tomorrow. Where actually what I feel is kind of started to happen, and maybe it might just be they felt the win on Tuesday has brought them this, is that the kind of atmosphere around today and the fact, I don't think you need to go back that long in Sri Lankan cricket where Shamira definitely would have played today, even though we know that if he gets injured, we're in a real big issue for the Super 8. And actually, they kind of mixed up a little bit. They brought in not just Pramod, but Madhu Shankar as well. I think it kind of feels like suddenly now that we're here, we're kind of trying to think a little bit ahead to the future. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Nick.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marky. I was delighted to see Dushi rested today. Wrap them all in cotton wool. It's a shame we can't rest all 11. But I think kind of building on Dilani's point, something to be really happy about. This is like the first time we've made the later stages of a global tournament in a really long time, right? I can't think back to Anton. You probably were with the team. Did we make a Super 8 in 2021, 22?
23 we did.
23 we did.
Yeah, in Australia we did, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that would have been the last tournament, right? Because we didn't at the World Cup, didn't in 24, and then crashed out early from this Asia Cup. So, I mean, players have gone down. It hasn't been perfect, as Dylan touched towards, but we're building, right? And sticking around in the tournament, seeing Pathum and Kusal in good form, I still feel like Sri Lanka can make a run at this.
I mean, part of it is you've got to be in the fight, right? I think, you know, if you don't know, Nick has written a brilliant book. It's a history about Sri Lankan cricket. It's called An Island's 11, right? And in that book, the first few chapters are about how kind of Sri Lanka becomes the kind of cricket machine and monster that it would become. And so much of it is around schools cricket. And there is a lot of issues with schools cricket in Sri Lanka and how the players get built up to be kind of superstar players. And, you know, I'm not saying it's a perfect thing, but what I do think it does create is I do think it creates this mentality amongst players. If you end up in a big match and you end up performing and you're like a 16, 17, 18-year-old who ends up getting plastered across newspapers and TV and radio locally, I think it can kind of help to create a kind of winning mentality later on and kind of handle the pressure. Where I contrast that to if you look at English players or Australian players who basically come out of nowhere, you know, they might be playing really good schoolboy level cricket or, you know, under 19s cricket or even getting into county cricket, but, you know, no one's watching Derbyshire versus Leicestershire. And then a player can go from playing from Leicestershire and end up bowling at the MCG. And you're like, right, that is such a big step in terms of what you're trying to do and how many people are watching you and your exposure and stuff like that. I kind of think actually Sri Lankan players in a way are better set up mentally to make that step to go, right, we're in the Super 8s. What do we need to do to go and win it? Let's go on and win it. I'm meant to be in this position. This is what people have told me I'm going to win World Cups at the age of 15, 16 years old. I don't know, Anton, whether, you know, and I think in many ways, actually, South Africa has a kind of similar kind of mentality when they're bringing kids or paths for bringing kids through the system. Do you think that, you know, can you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, I lived and, you know, I commentated on a few of the games that Dialogue used to promote during that March period, I think it is. And I absolutely agree. I think Sri Lanka is blessed with their pipeline. I think if it wasn't for their school cricket, they'd be in a world of hurt because I still think there's a lot of talent that goes missing in Sri Lanka, if I'm totally honest. South Africa is no different. I think their schooling system has been top drawer for a long period of time. What's really benefited South Africa in the last few years is that the university cricket has become extremely strong, and that's sort of plugged the gap from post under 19 to, you know, potentially making your first class debut a little bit later. So they've managed to plug that hole nicely by making university cricket extremely strong. And I would argue, as far as the facts go, that some of the university teams are first class, if not better standard. You know, if everyone plays in that side. My only rebuttal I would have to that statement, Mark, is that I would love to see the average Sri Lankan cricketer who comes through that schooling system and gets picked young age for his club and picked at a young age for Sri Lanka. I would love for them to be a well-rounded individual. And what I mean by that is have an education behind their name, just so that cricket is not the be-all and end-all for them. So, yes, I agree. At the one end, those big matches and stuff, that it helps them, you know, get used to that sort of pressure and that sort of spotlight on them as a youngster. But, you know, when things don't go your way, which it inevitably will in professional sport, everyone goes through a bit of a dip in form. You know, what do the guys have to fall back on? And I think if they can holistically just put the pieces of the puzzle a little bit together for the average Sri Lankan cricketer, I think then you'll see in the modern age, the cricketers will just thrive because they know that even if it doesn't happen in cricket, I've got something to fall back on. And we all know the models are out there to prove us right in every sense of the word, to say that makes an all-rounded human being who's going to make quality decisions under pressure for you out in the middle, and is also going to be a custodian, not only for you the team, but also for your country. So I would love to see that and get SLC to put a program in place where they can educate these boys and just get something behind their name.
Delaney, are you going to go to any of the Super 8 games?
I was wanting to, but I don't know. It depends on my friends. Still trying to convince them, let's go. But they don't seem too interested. So it's a little bit like I can't go and sit in a stadium by myself. But yeah, that's where it's at.
I can't believe you have to persuade people to go. I'd be troubled. Like I was, you know, I'm slyly, when my wife's not looking, I've been looking at the price of tickets to try and get myself over. But let's wait and see how it goes on Saturday, on Sunday even, because I don't want to end up there. And the worst thing that could happen is to end up there and it all kind of fall apart. But let's, and maybe it's better for Sri Lanka if I just stay in London and don't worry too much about it. But I imagine the atmosphere in Colombo must be or across Sri Lanka must be absolutely heating up. The amount of messages I've received this week after that Australia win from people I didn't think had any interest in cricket, or the thing I find quite funny is when you're in Sri Lanka and people tell me now that essentially they say after 2015 they haven't watched any cricket and it's not worth watching Sri Lanka now that Mahela and Sangha aren't there. I think that win on Tuesday reminded everyone that the Sri Lankan cricket team not just still exists, but also is well worth watching as well. Guys, should we wrap it up there for today? We've been going on for just over an hour. I need to figure out how I'm going to do this, but I want to do a show tomorrow because I think the women are playing the West Indies in the West Indies. I'm not sure when I say how I'm going to do this, I'm not sure how I'm going to watch this. So I don't know what channel it's on. But if I can find out how I'm going to watch it, I'm going to try and assemble some Murali Enders and we'll try and do a show and talk about it. So please do come and join us then. And also we'll obviously be back after the show on the Sunday. I think win, lose or draw, we'll need each other to be there to talk us through whatever the result is. And you know, figure out where it all leaves us. With being the Murali End, thank you for joining us. We will see you all on Sunday. See you soon. Bye.
It's the Murali End, you're in a place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we when man it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. So tell a friend.